So yeah, welcome to our webinar. Today's webinar is going to be on forest fires and type 3 fire crew contracts specifically. So I'm Brandon Soraka, CEO and founder of Fortech. Today we also have on Layla Pintar that works with Fortech, and we have Michelle as well. We'll go into further introductions in a few minutes. While we're getting ready to get started, if you want to type in the chat your name, company you're with, any contact info if you want to be added to our contact list. As well, if you want to type in the chat reason that you're joining today, what you're hoping to get out of today, if you're looking for employment, if you just have general interest, feel free to just type in the chat while we're getting started here. Maybe where you're from. Welcome, Alex. Welcome, Caleb. Welcome, Renato. Welcome, Ben. Welcome, Rose. Cody. Craig. Nicole, Jelly, John. Christina, Danielle. Welcome, everyone. So just give it a few minutes here for everyone to join. Again, I'm Brandon Soraka, CEO and founder of Fortech. You will be able to find a recording of this webinar on YouTube, so keep an eye open for that. So we got Renato, interested in careers in the area, currently in Edmonton. Thank you for the webinar. Well, thank you for joining. So yeah, if you're just joining, feel free to type your name, company, email, what you're hoping to get out of today into the chat. Hey, Caleb, welcome to the team. We're happy to have you joining Fortech. Thanks for joining today. All right, well, without further ado, we will get started. Let's move on to the next slide. Oh yeah, so we're gonna have a draw at the end. So if you want to get entered to win a 10% discount to our Fortech online store, just type the name, company you're with, and your email address. And you'll be entered into the draw. Next slide.
Hi, everyone. I'm Layla Pintar. I'm part of Fortech HR sales, and I'm pretty much doing the fire side of things as well. I came to Fortech with quite a bit of experience. I've been working in the forestry field for about 10 years. I've done fire for 7, 3 in Red Lake, 2 in Sudbury as a type 1 forest firefighter. I also got the opportunity to work with type 2s and type 3s out in BC as well as here in Alberta. So today we're going to just kind of get into what the type 3 contract is, who can apply, safety, PPE, and other questions that come to you guys' mind we can cover as well. So basically, a lot of questions that I get throughout interviews is, what is a crew service? A lot of people hear the type 1 industry for the ministry, whether it's through Ontario, BC, Alberta. So there's 3 different types of aid in each province that when we're extremely busy, we can call upon extra help. So this is where we come in handy. So the type 3 contract. The type 1 is basically straight from the government side of things. So you go through the government to get this position. The type 2 contract is also a subcontracting position that you can get through if you're part of an Indigenous community. I know in Ontario we do have a lot of that. And then as well as the type 3, you can get that through subcontracting subcontracting companies such as Fortec and other companies that are out there. So why are crew contracts needed? As most of us know who are in the Alberta area and BC area, or just by opening your phones either through Instagram or on the news, you'll see that we had a pretty early start this year. Natural disasters can happen at any time of the year. So when we're talking about natural disasters, that can come from not just fire specific, that can do mudslides, avalanches, floods, any type of emergency service that we can help with. And as long as we have individuals with that type of certification qualification, we can deploy on a needed basis. And often crews are contacted when there is emergency situations where they're needed extra bodies on the ground to help combat fires or other natural disasters. So crew service. So type 2 and type 3. A lot of people will get confused and want to know what the difference is between the two. So like I mentioned before, the type 1 service is ministry based. There are certifications and qualifications that you get through the government when you sign a contract with them and work with them. The type 2 contract crews. So this is more of a low risk direct attack. So you do get to see some pump and hose action, some flame. You're mostly working at digging fire guards, removing fuels off the ground. Very similar to a type 3 contract, we do the same thing. The only real difference between type 2 and type 3 in comparison to type 1 is we're mainly utilized as mop-up services. So we'll get the crews from the government that go in and make sure that the area is secure to allow individuals like the subcontracting companies to go in and secure the area, make sure the fire's out, hotspot, mop up, and get everything cleaned up so those type 1 crews can continue moving on from fire to fire in a busy season. So why are crew services important? As we know, we have some quiet seasons and we have some really busy seasons. So when the subcontractors are called out, it's because there's been an emergency put out where they are requesting as many boots on the ground to help out with whatever is happening, whether that is getting some extra first aid individuals out there, extra firefighters out there. That's where we come into play. So basically the province's personnel are stretched to their capacity, and that's when we come in and help them. We relieve that stress, and then they can go, like I said previously, from fire to fire and continue on fighting fires. So the types of deployment that you see when you're part of the type 3 contract, as well as type 2. So you have your structural protection, you have your first aid, you have heavy equipment, tree assessors, and tree fallers. So structural protection. I like this photo here because it kind of shows you what the sprinkler system kind of looks like. So this, you get a course through BCWS with trained professionals who come out and put on a course for individuals, which is called your SPU, Structural Protection Units. And what they do is they help us figure out how to properly triage an area. So if you are in an area that needs that, or who has been evacuated, this is where people would come in, set up sprinklers like so that you see in the photo here, either to people's homes, secure the area, remove anything such as welcome mats, hanging pots, patio furniture, extra wood that's piled against your house, tires, and so on and so forth, in hopes to create a natural bubble of humidity, so that way if there is a serious ground fire that's coming your way, it could either protect your home or slow down the rate of spread. So I chose this photo here because it kind of gives you an idea based as to what I was talking about if you're triaging. So if you're in a general area like so, you'd have some crews come in and have a priority based on what is the most important to save, what needs to be protected right away, how many sprinklers, and then you can kind of triage a whole neighborhood by being able to have this type of training. What you see when you are deployed to structural protection deployments is you'll have the use of a Mark III power pump. You'll also have your 2.5 inch hose, Econo hose, tools, sprinklers, ladders, and the proper training to be able to climb a ladder, set up all these sprinklers accordingly. We often see if there's a fire hydrant, how to properly set up a hose to that, or if you have the time/option to have a water tender set up and get some water pumping from that and protect these structures. So heavy equipment deployment. As you see here in the photo, this kind of shows what you would see if there was a crew who has been deployed to go and create what's called a fire break. So this section here just kind of allows to remove any sort of fine fuels to create that break. So if the fire was to get to here, there is still the potential of spot fires from embers, but with the ground being scraped up like this, it allows that fire break and slow down that rate of spread depending on how big your size of road break is. And then later on, if this area where you see all the trees are, if that is something that is burnt, you can have this fire break that we've created here as a road access to have trucks come in and help the crews move along with some equipment to either monitor or to go in and punch in and get some of these hot spots out. The type of heavy equipment that we see get put on these types of fires, you'll notice is bulldozers, excavators, water trucks, feller bunchers, skidders, and I know somewhere just down the road, we've had a lot of like farming equipment to come in as well. And then what's the beauty of the heavy equipment deployment is you can have access to these guys or girls to go out there and work throughout the night or early in the mornings when the fire risk is low. So having that advantage of creating that extra break when the fire is kind of having its little rest to be able to really get at it with the crews early in the morning to slow down that spread. So like mentioned in the previous slide, so what are fire breaks? So not only is it mechanically made, but you have natural breaks such as river, lakes, canyons, existing ones such as pastures, roads, cultivated fields, and then the constructed ones, so the ones that we would go out and create. And then you have mowed lines / wet lines, so mowing and wetting vegetation as well. So first aid deployments, as you guys probably seen, whoever who has seen the job descriptions and the qualifications that we're looking for, BCWS likes having the OFA 1 and OFA 3 with transport endorsement. This allows you to be able to transport an individual safely with an ETV or an NTC. What you do see in most cases is if you deploy as a crew of 5, you don't require a first aid vehicle. A crew of 10, you must have a ETV, which is an emergency transport vehicle. And then a crew of 20, one mobile treatment center, which is your MTC. So the difference between the two. So ETV, emergency transport vehicle, provides immediate patient transportation to a healthcare facility. It's designed to move quickly, safely through harsh terrain. And yeah, you have the access to all these logging roads with this type of vehicle. And then you can transport whoever you have into the ambulance section. MTC, so your medical treatment center, so small business truck. We see those quite commonly as opposed to the ETVs. It looks kind of like a mini camper that's on the back of a long box pickup truck. And it's ideal to remove individuals. You have access to oxygen if you need. You have your basket stretchers to strap your individuals down. And yeah. So tree assessor deployments. The tree assessor basically is the person who is in charge of going in prior to setting a team in and doing an assessment of the area. So often in BC, there'll be a fire that's kind of been cooled off and we get called to go out there and put a crew in. So this is where you'd have somebody who has their DTA, danger tree assessor. They'll go in and they have 3 different colors of flagging. So you have a green flagging, you have a yellow flagging, and you have your red flagging. You have to have a specific course in order to be able to deploy as a danger tree assessor. There's different types of modules out there. The one that you require in order to be a certified danger tree assessor in BC is your wildfire module. So this training is awesome. I suggest everyone getting it. It helps you go in and really evaluate what type of tree it is to begin with. Are the root systems compromised? Is it safe to put a team in here working around with, let's say there's some root system showing, or is it a tree that needs to be cut down? So green flagging states that the area is safe to enter. The trees have been assessed and have been felled. Yellow flagging usually has a no work zone attached to the flagging. This states that you can go in, but not into the area that is flagged off. Then you have your danger tree. So that is usually flagged off as danger tree. And that is that it's been assessed, but that the faller has to go in there and take the tree down. Now, sometimes you'll see once that area has been done, also the faller may put a pink flagging tape. So in order to be a danger tree faller, or a faller in general, you have to go through your courses in order to get it, whether it's your N-Form, you need to be certified and qualified to cut. Those who are certified but are not qualified, this is a great opportunity to get out there and work alongside either ministry folk or other contractors who have certified and qualified fallers who can sign your logbook, as well as getting your different types of terrain, depending on where the fire is, if it's coastal, interior, northern. It's a good foot in the door, and it definitely allows you to assess different types of burnout trees. Fallers can be put on crews and deployed as a team, or they could be called upon to be just sent out as fallers as well. Yeah, so whether it's falling trees to get a crew in safely or, helipad falling, that's kind of where we utilize these guys. So on the call today, we have Michelle Wigmore. Michelle will be touching on a few slides after, but I'd just like to do a proper introduction. This is her in the photo. She has over 30 years of experience. I'm really excited to have her on the call today and chat with us about some of her stories and some safety, as she's been around for quite some time. So she's done 16 years as type 1 in Alberta and Ontario, 9 years as a training specialist at the Hinton Training Center here in Alberta, 4 years as a fire technician and fire operations supervisor in Ontario. So she has her Incident Commander 2 for certifications, her S300, Advanced Fire Behavior, Hover Exit, ICS 400. So she grew up in London, Ontario, is very well known in the fire world in Ontario as well as here in Alberta. She was introduced to forestry and forest fires in her early 20s, graduated from Fleming College with a diploma in integrated resource management, and then began her firefighting career in Geraldton, Ontario. So that's where she spent 4 years on a 4-person Helitack crew in Ontario, then eventually moved out to Alberta to become a training specialist at the Hinton Training Center. So welcome, Michelle. I'll pass this along to you.
Thank you. Make sure I can be heard properly. Is everyone hearing me all right? I can't see anyone, so I assume you're out there. All good. Okay, we're just going to talk a little bit about the safety aspects of fire. And when we fight fire, we always say we want to fight fire aggressively, but provide for safety first. And that's generally what we do. We want to get out there, we want to fight the fire, but we really want to be safe about it. And there is ways that we can do this. And one of them is using this acronym called LACES. And basically this takes in a whole bunch of other protocols that people have come up through the years and simplifies it. And you guys will use this all the time when you're out on a fire, or at least hopefully you should be. This is across North America too. It's not just Canadian. So we'll go through it briefly. L for lookout. And this sort of looks at 2 different parts of what you'll be doing. One of it, we'll have like lookouts placed around the fire. Depending on what the fire is doing, we may put people on the mountain or in a helicopter, and they'll fly around and make sure you're all right, and generally talk to your crew leader or strike team leader. Then looking at it from a crew member point of view, you will also be expected to pay attention and look out for things happening around you. So you may not be talking to the helicopter, but you'll be watching for changes in weather and changes in fire behavior, anything that could cause problems. And you really want to pay attention out there, even if you're new. We always say, you know, a lot of people are heads down, ass up, and that's not what we want. We want you paying attention while you work hard out there. The second point is anchor points. And basically, this is just a safe area where you start working from. And my favorite form of fighting fire is with a Mark III and 1.5-inch hose, but sometimes you're building hand line as well. And you want to pick a good starting point, and your crew leader will do this for you. They'll pick a good starting point and you'll start building line. And what it means is that if something in front of you starts to flare up or gets dangerous, you just walk right back down the line that you just built that's safe and the fire's out, and you go back to your anchor point, and then you can get to safety from there. So you always want to have a good starting point for building line. Communication. Again, there's 2 parts to this. There's the communications that your crew leader or your strike team leader will have with people sort of above you, like either in the helicopter or back at base or back at camp. And that communication has to be available and work well. And then what you'll be involved with is communication from within the crew. And this is really important. You want to watch out for each other out there. You want to work together as a team. If you're seeing something, you want to pass that along, and you want to listen to what other people are seeing out there, because it just makes it safer for everyone when you're talking and people know what's going on and you know where your fellow crew members are working. Escape routes. This is just a pre-established way to get away from the fire if you need to. If suddenly something flares up and becomes more exciting than what we want it to be, which can happen. So you have a way to get away from where you're working to a safe area. And this should be done ahead of time and generally done by someone with experience like your crew leader. But it's your job to know where the escape route is and how to get away. So you got to make sure you know that at all times. And then finally, we talk about safety zones. So your escape route will lead to a safety zone, and a safety zone is just a big area where you are safe from the fire. And actually, it doesn't just have to be the fire. If you find the winds are picking up and trees are falling down, you can head to your safety zone. Or if a crazy thunderstorm rolls through, you can head to your safety zone. There's just an area big enough where you can hang out while the fire does what it's going to do, and you'll be safe. Right, so that's LACES. We'll go on to environmental factors. This is 3 parts of what we like to call a fire environment. So we talk about fuels, topography, and weather, and we'll go through each one of those quickly here. So I think there's a slide for fuels. Yeah, there we go. So when we talk about fuels, we're going to be talking mainly about dead fuels because they initiate the fire start and spread. Once it gets going, it'll burn everything. But we look at the dead fuels. And the primary thing with the dead fuels is the fuel moisture content. So how wet is that fuel basically? And that's sort of dictated by the environment. Has it been raining lots, or is it hot? What's the RH? So we'll get into that a bit, but we look at what is the fuel moisture content, and that tells us how many fuels are available to burn. And with this, there's 3 sizes of fuels we talk about. First off, fine fuels. That's anything smaller than we generally say your pinky finger, down to, needles, spruce needles or whatever, moss, cured grass. So anything really small are considered fine fuels. These fuels dry out really fast and are available to burn, but they don't burn real intensely. They call them sort of flash fuels. So for more intensity, we look at medium fuels. So this is the size of your pinky up to the size of your wrist. And we're looking at like branches, bigger logs, sticks, and then anything below the surface, that duff layer down to 10 centimeters. And this sort of makes, if more of that fuel is available to burn, it means we can have a more intense fire. And then finally, we look at heavy fuels. So that's anything bigger than your wrist, and it can get right up to big logs and very deep burning duff layers down to 20 or down to mineral soil, basically. So if that stuff's really dry, that means we can get really hot, intense fires because all the fuel is dried out and ready to roll. And that's when things become intense and a little bit more dangerous out there. Okay, next we talk about topography. And you guys in BC deal with this a lot. And I'll just tell you right now that fighting fires in mountainous areas or really hilly areas is way harder than fighting them on flat ground. Topography does weird things to winds, which affect fire. And it's also harder for you to move around through the mountains. Like when you think of, how long it takes to climb up a mountain to fight fire or down or whatever. Movement for the crews is a lot harder. So you got to be a bit more careful when you're fighting fire in the mountains. We look at slopes, the steepness of the slopes. And I think we all know that fire moves uphill a lot faster than it does downhill. And a firefighter moves slower uphill. So we don't want to have those things work together against us. We have to be careful. The aspect of the slope, that's whether it's facing north or south. You think of a south aspect slope will dry out a lot faster. The fuels will be more readily available to burn than a north face. So we have to look at aspect. We look at elevation. The fuels on the valley bottom are quite a bit different a lot of times than the fuels on top of the hill or the mountain. And along with that, we can get some crazy winds. If you've ever been hiking in the mountains, we all know crazy gusts from all different directions, and it really makes fighting fire a lot more challenging in those situations. And then just the overall land configuration, like flat areas, deep gullies, high mountains, that all comes together and influences the topography and the fire behavior. And then the third aspect of the fire environment is weather. And we look at 5 factors that affect fire behavior. We'll start with temperature. And I would say temperature surprisingly has the least influence on our fire behavior. You can have a fire that's rocking and it's only 10 degrees out. It doesn't happen a lot, but I think temperature and RH, relative humidity, work together and influence our fire behavior. When we look at relative humidity, that's how much moisture is in the air. So the lower amount of moisture in the air, the better the fire is going to burn. And we often talk about something called crossover. So if the temperature is higher than the relative humidity, we look at that as a red flag warning that there is potential for extreme fire behavior. And keep in mind, there's potential before crossover happens, but definitely crossover is a red flag for us. Wind. So we look at the direction the wind is coming from and the speed, and that really influences and push your fire in all sorts of directions very quickly. Precipitation, we talk about rain and snow. Obviously, if you're getting rain, your fuel moisture content is going to be higher and the fire isn't going to burn as aggressively or at all. So we keep track of that throughout the season. Finally, atmospheric stability, or in some cases instability. And we think of a stable environment is not conducive to really erratic fire behavior, but instability is. And instability is when you're feeling like gusts of winds coming from different directions. There's big cloud buildups. You can see thunderstorms off in the distance. All that kind of thing are indications that it's an unstable environment and that your fire could do things or be more dangerous for you out there. So it's important to know about these 5 weather factors. Okay, fatigue. 3 types of fatigue. We talk about acute fatigue, and basically an example of this is you work a long shift, say you work a 12, 14-hour day, and at the end of the day, you're tired, but you have a good night's sleep, and the next day you're ready to roll again. So we call that acute, and you generally recover fairly quickly from it. The second kind is cumulative, and that will happen throughout the course of your shift. So you work a 10, 12, 14-day shift, and every day you get a little bit more tired. And at the end of the shift, you're kind of tired, but maybe you take a couple days off and you recover and you're ready to go again. And then finally, we have chronic fatigue, and that to me is more throughout the season. So you've had a hard season, you go out a bunch of shifts in a row, and it just sort of accumulates over time, and it just takes quite a bit longer to recover from. And I've had seasons where I just sort of got home and slept for a couple weeks just to recover after just shift after shift of hard firefighting. They say with chronic fatigue, there's also a stress element. And I feel on a crew, we can control this a little bit by maintaining like a high morale. Like if people get along really well and are working really good together as a team and enjoying being with each other and fighting the fire out there, I feel this makes it so it's not as grueling. You don't feel as lonely. And if you're happy out there and working well, you tend to ward off this chronic fatigue, and that's really important. So some things to help, and I think this is more to do with acute, maybe cumulative fatigue, but you take breaks out there. You'll find you'll have good days and bad days, and you know, sometimes you just have to go a little bit slower. Drink lots of water. You want to eat frequently. You see people try to diet and lose weight while they're on the fire line, and that always ends in disaster. You don't want that. You're going to be burning a lot of calories, so you want to eat. Try to eat good food. Stay away from the baked stuff. Get some fruit and vegetables into you, even though you don't always feel like that. Maintaining a high level of fitness. So I find that whatever sort of ailment you have ahead of time, you go out on a fire and it gets worse. So if you come in to the season in top physical shape and healthy, you're going to do a lot better out there. If you come in sort of broken down a bit, like say you have a cough that won't go away, sometimes during the fire season, it gets worse and becomes bronchitis or something. If you have a sore knee and then you go out, it gets worse. So you want to be healthy coming into the season, and then you'll just enjoy it a lot more, and your body will recover a lot better out there. Okay, and then sometimes you have to just, you don't have to sit down, but maybe just pace yourself so that you're not going hard all the time, because you just can't keep that up. So sometimes you got to just pace yourself. Okay, heat stress. Two types that we talk about here. Both are serious. One's the stroke is quite a bit, like, can cause more problems, but both are pretty serious. And we'll talk about heat exhaustion. The main thing with that is that the person's skin is cool, they're sweaty, sort of pale looking, and maybe a weaker pulse. They seem dizzy, maybe they're not quite sure what's going on. And they probably start throwing up and getting sick. Okay. And so you want to have this person sit down, take some electrolytes, get cooled off however they can, sit in the shade. And what I found with heat exhaustion, as part of working as a team, if you can keep an eye on each other and catch this before it becomes a huge problem, before it gets to the exhaustion stage, maybe you notice someone beside you looks a little bit not quite themselves, and you say, hey, do you want to just sit for a bit and recover? If they can recover before they hit the full exhaustion stage, they'll probably be fine in a couple hours. But once you hit heat exhaustion, it'll take probably a few days to recover from. So help each other out there, and keep an eye on your crewmates there. Heat stroke is really serious. It doesn't really happen a lot, but you really want to know when it happens, because you need medical attention right away. So in this case, the skin is hot. It's not sweaty, dry, red, fast pulse. So you're not pale, you got a red face. Mental confusion, loss of consciousness, and this would be really scary to experience on the fire line. You need to cool that person immediately and get medical help immediately with this one. This one's serious. So you want to make sure you know the difference in the signs, and generally just try to stop it before it happens. Next slide. Okay, smoke exposure. There's been a lot of studies done on this one recently. So there is, obviously you're breathing in a lot of smoke at times. And what a lot of people don't realize that don't fight fires is that you're not always in smoke. There's times where it's smokier and times when it's not as smoky. And if you're a normal, healthy person, I feel that after you get out of the smoke, that you're going to recover, full recovery, and it's not going to be an issue for you. So I wouldn't be too worried, but there is things that you can do to help with that recovery and make sure you're not breathing in a lot of smoke that'll just slow you down more. So you want to take turns, spell off if there's a smoky area and you're nozzling away, like trade out who's in the smoke and who's not, and make sure everyone gets a break. Leave the area if it gets really bad, get out of there. We don't expect you to sit in the fire breathing in a ton of smoke. And sometimes you can move around, like if it's a slash pile burning, you move to the other side and you're not breathing in as much. So you want to look for opportunities like that as well. One thing to keep in mind is that wearing a bandana will not help you with smoke getting in your lungs. In order to prevent that, you'd have to have the full, like what the structural guys wear with the full mask. And I don't think we want to go there. So the bandana will keep out bigger chunks, keep your face a little cleaner, but it won't stop the smoke. You have to mitigate that within your crew. Okay, so environmental factors, and you figure just working in the bush, there's a lot of dangers out there with or without fire. Fire makes it worse. Dead trees, you can have limbs falling, you can have trees falling. They call them snags as a dead tree, widowmakers, a dead tree that falls on you. So you really have to be careful. BC uses the assessment system that Layla talked about, and which works really well to identify trees that could cause you problems out there. So you want to keep looking around, know your environment, and make sure that you're avoiding these like sketchy looking trees as you walk through the bush. Ash pits, sometimes they don't look very deep, and they are, and you step in them and you risk getting burns, and it can be quite painful. And then working in the mountains or hills, just stuff rolling down. So as it burns and trees fall down, things can come down the hill at you, and you want to be careful, and you want to make sure you're watching your crew members, other crew members as well, to make sure that that everybody's staying safe. And finally, we have slips, trips, and falls. So if you're going to get hurt on a fire, chances are it'll be a slip, trip, and or a fall. And these ones are frustrating. They don't tend to happen at the beginning of the shift. They happen mid to end of the shift, where you just sort of, you're a little tired, dragging a bit, and you wipe out. It's frustrating because then you have to take time off. So instead of, if you're covered by WCB, instead of getting paid to work 14 hours a day, you're getting 8 hours or whatever. So you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to miss out on working your shift. And you just sort of have to, just knowing that this happens, I think is helpful. And you just want to be careful when you're walking. So maybe at the beginning, you're a track star and you can jump from log to log. Maybe don't do that at day 10 on a shift. Maybe just take her easy and climb over them. Yeah, and just be careful. Okay, on to PPE, personal protective equipment. You'll see this acronym all over. And there's two reasons, well, that you want to use your PPE. You'll be required to wear everything on the fire. We'll give you a list in a minute here. And I don't find that there's much of a compliance issue with people anymore. People are generally really good about wearing their personal protective equipment. It just keeps you safe. These are the same things all across North America, and probably the world, actually, where all firefighters recognize, it's been recognized what works, and you just wear it because it works so well to protect you. So you want to wear it to prevent injury, but you also want to wear it because if you do happen to get hurt, WCB may not cover you if haven't been wearing your PPE. Okay. And again, we don't see that much. Everyone wears their PPE. So it's not generally an issue. I think the only thing that in the truck and you jump out and you forget to put on your hard hat and your buddy says, you're not wearing your hard hat, and oh, my head's naked or whatever. It's more a forgetful thing than just not doing it. And if you can help each other out and point out when that happens, then you can make sure you're always wearing it. Okay, so you want to make sure you have all your PPE available, and definitely wear it. And like I said, you work as a team to make sure that everyone has all the stuff they need and that they are wearing it when they should be, and you can help remind people, and they'll help remind you as well. Make sure ahead of time you have everything that you need. If you know you're going to be working with a helicopter or chainsaw or whatever it is, Foam is another one. You may have to have specialty PPE, and you can make sure that you have that beginning of the day. And I think next we have a list of PPE. There we go. Okay, so quite a big list. I won't go through them all, but what I will say is make sure you have stuff that's comfortable and fits well so that you're more likely to wear it. Like a hard hat or gloves, like just make sure it fits, and you won't even notice it's on after a while. It'll just be so natural to be wearing it. A couple things, safety glasses, go out, buy a pair you look good in. You want to look good out there, and you're more likely to wear them if they fit well and you're happy with them. Nomex clothing, and I think that's provided. Yeah, you want to make sure you keep it clean, because there has been studies that just the ash from the Nomex rubbing your skin isn't that great for you. So just make sure they're clean. We always had people that tried to go a whole shift without washing, and those people suck because they stink, but it's also not very good for you. A bunch of stuff with the chainsaw, chaps, extinguisher, rubber gloves for pouring foam concentrate. Yeah, you just want to make sure you have all this available, it fits well, and you know how to use it, and you're wearing it. And then finally, we have a gear list. So we have some personal items and some safety gear here. And yeah, you'd go out and just make sure that you have all of this stuff. Sleeping gear, like generally in Ontario and Alberta, I would say make sure you have to -10 a sleeping bag, because it gets cold out there. And I assume, BC, especially in the north, that'd be something that you would encounter as well. So make sure it's warm enough. I had a friend once who used to teach that said, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. So basically what he's saying, if you're going to forget stuff and not have the right stuff with you, you're going to have to tough it out, and life's a little harder for you. So take some time to make sure you have everything you need. It's all in working order before you go out there, and you'll just have a lot more enjoyable time and probably be able to work a lot harder and do a better job.
Yeah, and one thing, Vortex gear list is way more in depth than this. We just didn't want to overwhelm everyone with the amount of stuff that's on there. I know as a female in the fire side of things, there's some hygiene stuff that we need to think of as women to have enough of to be up there for 20 days. So once you apply to us and you're hired on, we send you the official gear list. I'm a pretty open book, so anyone who has questions, whether it's male or female, but specifically female, as to what you do in that regards, shoot me an email and we can always chat about it as well. Now, does anyone have any questions at this time?
There was a couple in the chat here. If anyone wants to type any more in the chat, or raise your hand, or even just unmute yourself to ask, that's fine. I'm just scrolling back to find the question here.
Sure.
So the question is, what are the security measures that must be taken into consideration by individuals intervening in forest fires?
Security, can you just read it again? Security measures, was that?
Yeah, what are the security measures that must be taken into consideration by individuals intervening in forest fires?
So I'm not really understand, like, you mean how to fight fires safely, or
That's what I understand the question.
So we do have those protocols like LACES that have to be followed and are generally always followed before you fight fire. As you get into more in-depth training, they get into more and more protocols, but I think the LACES really sums up all of that, just following that. and generally it's full compliance and everybody follows that.
Mhm. I think the biggest thing too would be like your S100 and your S185. And that's why BC makes it so mandatory every year to renew your S100. So you have the full understanding in that aspect. And like Michelle said, definitely get into more in-depth stuff as you kind of move up the chain of command. So that way you're prepared and you're confident in teaching new crew members that are new or experienced and passing along that knowledge to them as well.
Yeah, and you understand you're not alone out there. Like as a new member, it can be pretty overwhelming, but you'll have lots of people around you with experience, both on your crew and as overhead positions. And everybody works together to not put you into a situation where, you know, you're gonna be in danger. So you do have lots of support at all different levels around you.
Awesome, thanks for that answer. Another question we have here is, does Fortech collaborate on an international scale in terms of training? I could probably answer that one. In terms of training, we don't have any like training overseas or anything like that. But we do have a international recruitment program. So we usually bring in one or two or a couple hires per year from overseas. Typically how that process works is you would just apply to just send in a resume to careers@fortech.ca, and we would set up an interview, do the interview process, and if we think you're a good fit, then we could go through the process of like a seasonal or like a 2-year work permit, something like that. So yeah, we've definitely done that in the past. Is that what you were looking for an answer, I guess, or does that answer your question? Any other questions, thoughts, comments that anyone wanted to ask or put in the chat? I'll just check the Facebook Live here and just see if there was any in there.
I also just wanted to say, like, I know some people get a little bit shy or think that their question is silly or dumb. No question is dumb. So if it's not something that you feel confident in saying either on the Facebook Live or through the chat, I'll throw my email in the chat and you guys can also just reach out and I can hopefully answer what you're looking for.
We got another question here in the chat. Do the boots have to be NFPA wildland rated?
Yeah, I'm not sure your ratings. So.
Yeah, I know it's different from province to province. I mean, if you're going to be working on a chainsaw, you need to have your steel toes. I personally always suggest having like an 8-inch leather boot. I know in Alberta, Michelle, you guys have like the hiking style boot.
Yeah, I
correct?
think BC might be similar. I don't even know if they need steel toes, to be honest. We don't anymore in Alberta.
Yeah, policies have, yeah. I think it's only strictly for a chainsaw. But you guys pretty much all have the same boot out here. Like I know in Ontario we have to wear stills, but here in BC, yeah, I can definitely recheck and look at it. But I want to say, your typical hiking boot that has good support. I always say, you know, like a leather is good. Yeah.
And if you're coming to work for us and part of our onboarding process, we should go over that. So if you guys end up working for us, and we would go over the specific requirements by the government for our contract.
For sure.
Just checking the other chat here. Doesn't appear to have any questions. Okay, Okay, we have a question here. I'm not a forest technician or forester, but I do have outdoors experience and other skills. If I get safety tickets, do I have a chance to work for Fortech? Layla, I can let you answer that one if you want.
Yeah, definitely. We're looking for new people, experienced people. We are putting on the S100 and S185 June 1st. And that's so there's that. And then we are also putting on a fitness test in Prince George this Saturday, which I believe is the 27th of May. So if you can make it to that location, let me know. If not, we can always host another one here in Alberta if you're in the Alberta area. But just send us your resume, and just note that you have to participate in the S100 and S185 in order to be eligible for deployment. And also that is covered through Fortech.
Awesome, thanks, Layla. Just continue to scroll through the questions here. So I'm in Edmonton, but I could try to get there. How can I contact you? Email or the Fortech website?
So we'll throw the careers email in there again. We have lots of people actually who have been hired in the Edmonton area, Calgary area. If my only main concern is if somebody doesn't have a vehicle, to note that, so we can put you on a crew where you can get to and from the base, depending on where we station you. Bases are in Prince George, Dawson Creek, and Fort St. John.
Yeah, so Jelly just typed in the chat here, if you could please email your resumes to careers@fortech.ca, and all the spelling is properly in the chat. So if you just want to copy that email from the chat. Okay, so someone says, they're wondering about getting the info for hire.
Yeah, so we have posters all over on the website. You can also send me an email or email careers, and we can forward that over to you.
And if you have any friends that maybe are interested, but they're not quite sure exactly what they would be getting into, we will have this recording posted onto YouTube. So we'll send out an email with the recording, and you should be able to view that. Where any of your friends that are interested should be able to view this. We went over quite a few things in detail, so hopefully that can help clarify anyone's questions in the future. We have another question here in the chat. For deployment, is there days notice for travel?
Yeah, so how that works is I'll get a call and I have 60 minutes to give them a yes or no. If your crew is up next based on the crew list that we have, I'll notify you guys and you give me the yes or no. If there's a few people that say no, we move on to the next crew. And then I notify BC that we have someone to be deployed. So that just depends on the location and how urgent they want us. Usually, from my experience with type 2 and type 3, they give us, I've been in some situations where they ask us to be there as soon as possible. And I've been in situations where they give us notice for standby, which is where you would get ready, get your things there, and then be on standby until they're ready to deploy you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that answer. So it appears that's all the questions that we have, which is great because we're right on time with 1 minute left for the hour. So thank you everyone for attending. Really appreciate it. Oh, we got another slide there. Go ahead.
Yeah, we actually got quite a few left.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll keep going then. No problem.
So so how Fortech is involved. So we've been awarded the type 3 contract through the BC Wildfire Service. This is a nice little photo here that shows you guys when the rating is low, moderate, high, very high, extreme. Just something to keep your eye out when you're traveling so you know what kind of fire behavior you're looking at. I mean, we answered some of these questions in the chat. Who are we looking for? We're looking to add some more people to our manifest list. So crew leaders, or crew bosses, strike team leaders, crew members, new people, whether you're experienced or you've never done this before, we'll make sure that we pair you up with individuals on your crew that can help form you, help get you the proper training, and get you into a comfortable state to be able to do this job. So yeah, what to expect. It's not guaranteed work. I like to stress that out because it's not like we are the type 1 contract where you sign a contract and you're on from let's say April to October. This is a kind of like an on-call basis. So you can expect to be called out. It looks like it's going to be a pretty busy season. And again, you're not, the beauty of being a type 3 is you're not held, like you're not bound to having to come. You can say no, but it's better if you agree to come and be deployed. Oops. So the awesome thing too with type 3 is a lot of people like to keep their jobs and just let their employer know that they are and have been hired on and accepted a contract to work as a type 3 contractor. So you can still work and then also have the flexibility of being deployed. I suggest that prior to quitting where you are now, talking to your employer and explaining this and seeing what their thought process is. Again, we are hiring now. We're looking for people who want to work hard, be outside, and enjoy being outside, and that want to gain experience and knowledge to move up the chain of command into some leadership roles. So these are the positions that we have available. If anyone has these certifications already, when you send in your resume, you can attach a photo of your certifications as we make a little card with everything that you're signed off on, so that way when you are in deployment, they know exactly what kind of certification you have, and so on and so forth. So strike team lead, that's somebody who is in charge usually of a group of 20. They're in charge of your whole crew. They are chatting with BCWS. They're monitoring the progress that's being made from the team, helping in decision making and changes if required. Strike team leader qualifications. So I'm not going to read them off, but they're there for you guys to have a peek at. So if you're anyone who's on the call right now and you have all these certifications, this is a perfect opportunity for you. And I would suggest sending in your resume. So what is a crew lead? Crew lead is somebody who's considered a single resource leader, can direct up to 7 firefighters, perform different tasks. And the crew lead is the person who is going to be reporting back to the strike team leader. These are your crew lead certifications. Again, if you're on the call and you have these, this is awesome. Send in your resume. So what is a crew member? So a crew member is an individual who will be reporting back to the crew leader. Your crew member, just because you're a crew member doesn't mean that you're below. You definitely have a lot of important roles, such as like laying out hose, getting the pump started. If the pump can't get started, we can't get water, which means that's one of the top things to remember. I love being a crew member. It's part of the fun, and then moving up and gaining that experience from your crew leaders is also awesome. So these are the certifications that you need in order to be qualified for a crew member. So again, S100, S185, that course will be June 1st, and then as well as your annual fitness tests, and you have to be 19 to be able to join. And then we have crew member trainees, which is pretty sweet. This is for the green people. This allows you to work alongside either another crew member with previous years of experience. You have the same certifications that you have to do your S100, S185, and I do believe, yeah, your fitness test, and after X amount of hours, you can be bumped up into a crew member as a position. I think we went over first aid level 1, but first aid level 1 is a day course. I always suggest if you're going to go for OFA 1, you get your transport endorsement. Your transport endorsement just allows you to be able to transport an individual who's hurt. This course runs from 125 to 275, I believe, a head. There is some course availabilities out in Prince George the 8th and 9th of June. If you guys are interested in that, send us an email and we can get that organized. Now, to be able to deploy as a first aid attendant, you also need to have your S100, your S185, and your annual fitness test, as well as proof of certification. So anytime you're deploying as a type 3, you want to have a copy of all your certifications. I'll have a copy on hand as well, and a card stating that you have these certifications and qualifications to allow you to do this type of work. So then you have your level 3. So this is a more in-depth training. This allows you to work on larger work sites. If there is an injury, you could see your OFA 1 being the driver and your OFA 3 being the one in charge of taking care of the individual who is hurt. They are the ones who are making the decision, and whoever is there with them, either as their helper or their driver, are to follow suit. So same thing, qualifications for this: S100, S185, annual fitness test, proof that you have this certification, as well as your transport endorsement. And then in order to be a level 3 on the fire line as a type 3, 1 year of work experience related to this. So we have power saw operator. So what is a power saw operator? Says it like it is: somebody who is safely operating a chainsaw. So you can get your PSO training to just have the basic knowledge of how to turn it on, safety requirements for it, and then there's also a bucking course that you can take if that's something people are interested in. We have, I'm not sure if there's any courses left for this year, but there is opportunity to put a course on for that as well. You could be signed off to go and buck a tree. So that is like clearing trail, similar to what this guy is doing, opening a trail to have the crews work safely. Power saw operator qualifications, again, S100, S185, cannot be a trainee firefighter, and your annual fitness test. Danger tree assessor, we did go through that earlier at the start of the webinar. You have to have that course in order to be able to do this. We supply you with the cards and the book, as well as the wildfire module for danger tree assessing. You should always have that with you, so you're able to take notes and note that down and give that into BCWS. Same thing, requirements here. Every position, you must have your S100, S185, and your fitness test. And you cannot be a trainee firefighter. So you can go out and learn and assess with them, but you can't be the main person doing it until you get some practice. Excuse me. What training do we offer? So you get your S100 and your S185, your annual fitness test. We do offer some free in-house training via Zoom, WorkHub, discounted prices if we can get a group of 12 in for the OFA 1 and OFA 3 with transport endorsement. So this is the annual fitness test for the type 3. It's not the WFX for those who have reached out and asked about it or have said they're backing out because of it. We're not required to do the WFX test. Type 1 and type 2 are. So this here is literally all it is. You're walking 3.22 kilometers, so 2 miles with 25 pounds on your back, under 30 minutes. So again, we are hosting one this Saturday, 11 a.m. in Prince George, if it's something you're interested in. My email is in the chat. Please send me an email and we can get you on the list. And that wraps it up for today. Thanks, Michelle, for being here. That was really good. And if anyone has any questions for myself or Michelle, don't hesitate to ask.
There's one last question. Is the crew member trainee? Oh, sorry, there's a couple questions. I got my level 3, but it expires in August. Is it possible to renew this?
Yep.
Okay. Next one is the crew member trainee everyone that is hired first or people who don't have fire experience?
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Is the crew member trainee everyone that is hired first or first hired or people that don't have fire experience?
I'm not too sure I understand that. We hire experienced people, ticketed people, as well as trainees. So you would start out, if you are green, if I'm understanding the question right, if you are green and have never done anything like this before, you would count as a firefighter trainee. And then after a few hours on the, like, couple days, I want to say it was like 240 hours or something like that, you get to be considered as a crew member. You're still considered a crew member. It's just your first year of getting the experience, getting used to it, asking questions, and being properly trained on how to do the job. And then you can move into it's like a junior and a senior crew member role.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for clarifying that. I believe that's all that we had for questions. So yeah, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Layla. Thank you, Michelle. Great presentation. I'm sure everyone got a lot of value. And like I said, it'll be posted up on our YouTube for anyone else that wants to check it out. And if you're interested, email your resume to careers@fortech.ca. It's in the chat there. If you'd like, you could also email to Layla. Her email's on the screen. And give us a follow on social media.
Thanks everyone for joining today. Hopefully we cleared up some questions that have been asked.
Thank you.